Good evening, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live, and I wanted to share with you a fascinating, how would I call it? I wouldn't really call this an interview, but some information that we took a lot of painstaking efforts to put together, transcribed out into notes, and then transcribed into a AI voice, which I know many people don't like the idea of an AI voice, but granted, the information that you're going to listen here today is well worth the time and effort to listen to it. Now, you will hear my voice throughout this interview from one period to the other, and my voice you're hearing, and it's not AI. Thank God for that, right? But protecting the identity of sources is critical, and in this case here especially, it was very critical that I protect the identity of the individual that we spoke with here. And you're going to hear how Iranians really feel about any war that would be led by the United States against Iran and the current regime in Iran. And, many times I've taken up for Iran for one reason or the other there. I don't like the government, never have liked the government, but I've always stood for the Iranian people. But I had no idea just how serious Iranians take the freedoms that they have that are being trampled by the government, so much so that they are willing to celebrate and cheer for the overthrow of their own government. Many times I would just think, well, this must be CIA-backed, which a lot of it was CIA-backed coups going on in the country, but it really is the people. And you're going to hear that information today. So I really hope this is a blessing for you. And I apologize that you have to do this with an AI voice there, but the information is very accurate. And I think you're going to find it very interesting. So thank you for listening. And let's get right to it.
Financial issues or problems. Iran, on the other hand, is terrible. Economy is terrible. I can't tell you how much people are suffering in this hate for mullahs. They go on this street and people kick their turbans off their head, and then they have to execute people for that, because somebody did that. So, I'm telling you, if Israel attacks Iran, people going to come on the street in support of Israel. You remember when World Cup happened? I don't know if you were involved like with the sport or whatever. There wasn't a soccer World Cup. England and Iran played, and that was the middle of all those demonstrations in Iran. And when England breaches on, people came to street and celebrated. That's how much they hate every institution in Iran, and even including sport, which is unheard of in any country, so nobody likes these guys. And it's mainly because of this corrupt leadership in Iran then. This is a country that people should not have economic problems like this because of its natural resources, right? But with this fundamental always backward-looking and revenge of enemy, all this nonsense, people are tired. For 40 years all they say Islam is in danger, and then in the meantime their children are buying mansions in Canada and US, and living the life of Saudi princess. If anything happens, I can tell you right now, if a force of 20,000 people, I can't get on from one side, they can go all the way to Tehran, because except the core of the government and the people that they are feeding, and that's why they're supporting them. The population is fed up. Absolutely fed up with them. And when I say population, I mean people who, including people who were supporting them even a year ago. If there was an election, I can tell you they would get maybe 6-7% of the vote.
The U.S. was involved in the overthrow of Iran years ago, and they supported both sides. But, they wanted this crazy religious group to get into power. Some of the elites did. Why would they even do that then?
There wasn't. The previous government of Iran was implementing a model that would, if it had succeeded, and it had every sign that it would succeed, would make this oil exporting countries. Big oil exporting countries would sell everything or sell their oil, and with that money they would buy everything and import everything. So the money that was spent for energy was coming back to West. So it was like a trade. It wasn't a trade per se of oil versus, I don't know, whatever car or so. But in practice it was because they would sell the oil, give them the money, and then they give them money and give it back for automobiles, for industrial product, for everything, so the money would come back to West. And starting to implement a model that was different. They started to industrialize, and they realized if this model succeeds, everybody else going to follow suit, and when everybody else going to follow suit, then they won't need to sell their oil anymore, because they're going to be industrially self-sufficient. And if that happens, then the price of oil probably going to go through the roof. I'm talking about the time that oil was everything. Even now everybody knows that it's contributes 6-7% of the whole world energy. That's why they needed to stop that, and they stopped it. Of course, in the hindsight, they wouldn't have done it because they didn't. They thought that mullahs have been ally of the West for years, for 200 years since Napoleon time. Mullahs have always been basically the bribe taker that would facilitate the West decisions in Iran. So to think that the mullahs going to turn on them, they didn't think so. They said, okay, these guys have been our buddies for all so long, so let's topple Shah, put them in power. They plan of industrialization gonna go off, going to get messed up. And then obviously everybody else is not gonna want to do their model either. Except he turned and he's very different. The mullah that who came to power was a person full of hate and anger, and had a life of very miserable life, and he wanted to revenge everything from everybody, and he started it and everybody followed. So this is why they were okay with it as revolution. But the day that they invaded US Embassy a year and a half later, that's when they woke up and realized, oh no, what have we done? Do you think then that Shah told him, said, you guys are making a mistake. This is a different breed of mullahs. This is not the mullahs we used to deal with. This guy is an animal, and cause one time in one of his speeches he said it, and that's why everybody knows that this all is true. He said when this happened, we realized Shah was right. That which means we weren't listening to him. He was telling us this and we were listening to him. So, he basically by saying that confessed that they were supporting these people, and they ruined the country. Look, Iran was the second biggest economy in Asia, was after Japan. So, China, South Korea, all of these had a smaller economy than Iran. There was a big thing from a president of Malaysia. That is about I don't know how many years ago, and then he said one day we're gonna become like Iran. And look at Malaysia, oh look at Iran, or Korea. Foreign policies, they do some populist things and say, yeah, wow, that's great, they are supporting Palestine, and it's all nonsense. You cannot destroy 80 million according with 80 million people in support of Palestine. Israel and Palestine are smaller than in one of the small provinces of Iran together with Lebanon. They're only playing the Palestinians. They don't help Palestinians. They only help them when they attack Israel. They never help their infrastructure. They never help their anything for them. Only when they want to attack Israel, they say, yeah, go ahead. Here is missiles, go period. Hit it and we give you money. And then they give them money.
Do you think that Saudi Arabia and even I know he wants to meet with King Abdullah in Jordan as well, but do you think that Saudi Arabia, for example, made an alliance with them because they feel similar? They feel like that their people would revolt against them as well.
No. Okay, I don't think so. I think Saudi Arabia is tired. Saudi Arabia knows that it has to solve the Yemen problem.
Yeah, you can't have this war going on down there in Yemen, right next to the Neom city that they're building for their AI future.
Exactly. So it's more economic reasons for that then. Look, imagine he's building his city in Yemen. Which is with 2 missiles. So, which Western gonna go there? That's supposed to be a tourist resort, right? You don't go to tourist resort that keep getting hit by missiles. So he needs to solve the Yemen problem for all his big plans that he has for Saudi Arabia. And he realized that Yemen's war will not end because the maintenance of the government, of the support of the Houthis maintenance is very cheap, because they don't need a lot. These guys just need their weapon and something to eat, and they're gonna go. And an army, God knows how much you have to spend to support an army in war. It's like a guerrillas in the World War II. They didn't have any financial support from anywhere, right? But they were doing their thing right. So, then Houthis are like that. Lot of these soldiers don't have boots, and they're fine. They have used live like, this all their lives. So within little very minimum investment Iran has managed to get through this, involved in this nonsense that means, and they wanted out. That's why they made up with Iran. But I don't think bin Salman thinks of Iran any less hatefully than he did, because of all the sons of the original king, of the founder of the Saudi, these brothers that came to power one after the other. Bin Salman's father was the one that hated this Iranian government the most, and that has gone back to the beginning of revolution. So he's the one that hated them the most. And obviously he brought his children with this idea that these guys are animals, which they are. I'm not saying Saudi crown families is no animals themselves, don't get me wrong. But these guys said no, bin Salman would never, I don't think ever gonna allow.
That Netanyahu then really knows what this agreement is about, and it's only a political move that he's making by making these statements?
Yes, that's what he does in any time he is in power, anytime he comes in power, anytime he's not in power. He doesn't talk so much about this kind of nonsense, right? But anytime he comes to power, when he needs money for army and stuff, and get more from the danger of Iran is over. He's talking like this when he all well knows Iran will never, ever dare to attack Israel. Look, do you know that while they were in Syria, you remember you were telling me they were attacking the Iranian bases in Syria? And then you were worried that they might have hit back. And I told you they never going to hit back. And now it comes out. Is that it's if the ex-prime minister asked the foreign minister of Iran during Rouhani's time, he said they hid from me over 100 strikes of Israel on Iranian bases. Revolutionary Guard hid on top of all of the ones that everybody knows. He said over 100 of these strikes that Revolutionary Guard suffered in the hands of Israel. The Revolutionary Guard hid it from Iranian government of the embarrassment, because they don't hit back. They only can give money to Hamas or Hezbollah. They said, you do it. They don't. They never will.
And is that because they're afraid of the retaliation the United States would come with them and retaliate on Iran?
Yes, they are cowards. They are little cowards. Look, Taliban is the most primitive. I mean, when they took power in Afghanistan, they didn't have even an air force, because they don't even know how a plane operates. They don't know nothing. They're just idiots that have sit in rooms and learned the laws of 1,400 years ago. Mullahs are more or less saying this, more or less the same, but they had to come on. And when they came to power, they get to this social society, that was different. Afghanistan society is not that different from what it was 200 years ago. So mullahs, Iran needed to adapt themselves a little bit. Taliban never did need to do that. Anyway, they didn't have anything. They had administration that wasn't working. They didn't have an air force. They are landlocked. The army is basically a partisan army. When they came to power, they've been in Iranian embassy and killed everybody. Imagine somebody goes to your embassy and kills all your diplomats, everyone. So everybody in Iran wanted a retaliation. They said Afghanistan embarrassing us like this. Taliban embarrassing. He said, no, don't shoot. Don't you ever shoot at them. That's a trap from United States. They didn't even dare to retaliate against all of us. So all they do is they take Iranian resources, give it to Houthis, give it to Hezbollah, give it to anybody in the world. Anywhere in the world that is willing to still steer trouble. They are willing to help. They do it in Africa. They do it in Asia. They do it even in Southeast Asia, everywhere. But don't ask them to get personally involved, because they are so afraid of United States and Israel that they think anything is a trap that they have made for them to get them involved. So they strike, and it does. So this is gonna go on forever.
It does seem that Israel has been attacking in order to provoke them to attack, because that's all they want is one strike on.
But they don't. In order to justify it. They don't, because they can easily hid inside, and then they gunner, and they're stupid because Israel came in and blew up all the atomic stuff with the spy work. Anyway, so you know they don't need to strike. They have done a lot of damage to at first with that spyware that they sent into their system, and then they blew up Notens and couple other times. And there are obviously works that nobody knows about, right? Why do you think Russia then supports Iran, especially I could see them supporting the people, but they don't. They support the government. So why would Putin support? Why they support Venezuela? Why they support North Korea? People in North Korea eat grass out of hunger, and Russia supports them because they are onto West. Look at Putin's allies. Worse than the other, in terms of running their country. Venezuela has the biggest oil deposits of the world, twice as much as Saudi Arabia. And look at the life the babies animals have brought for their people.
Just whoever's in power, the little small elite group that can control the entire...
Yeah. Look at North Korea, look at Yemen, look at Syria. Yes, and Yemen. But these are put in there.
The only reason they killed the Yemenite leader there was because he actually seemed to care about his own people.
Yes, that's what they do. I mean, this is the problem. Like if somebody is, and not like, if you, the only way you can do it is pretend to listen to them and then do things for your people. And that is very hard, because if the decisions they're making is according to their own interest, not that particular country's interest, right? So that's why it's impossible. Almost you end up like Anwar Sadat, or you end up like Shah, or you look and then end up like many other leaders that are in there. There's so many of them that wanted the good for their people. Even the US, even Iran. That guy was a very decent guy that was trying to run the country and made the Shah escape. He was a real hero, and the US did. These guys are horrible, you know. I know, and you know that's the problem.
Because like Muammar Gaddafi, you know, he wanted the people to have, you know, so much money from the oil revenue because they were citizens. He was trying to give them, he gave them what they call primary water. There was Hungarian scientists that discovered it and helped him to get this. And he really seemed to care for the people. But then the U.S. goes in...
Oh yeah, they killed him. Guys, you look, I bet you it's a shame that we won't live 1,000 years. But if we were, I would bet you 1,000 years. From now, they will never have a leader like Gaddafi, never.
Thank you, friends, too, for listening to Israeli News Live. And we trust all this information was a real blessing to you there. Kind of cut off kind of abruptly there. But like I said, a lot of this was just put together. A lot of this transcribed out like a note format afterwards in order to make this information possible for you. And anyway, good evening. God bless you. And thank you for the support here of Patreon with Israeli News Live.